Hello and welcome back to English with Jack. I am delighted you have chosen to join me today as we work together to improve your listening skills and help you speak more naturally. Our goal on this channel is to bridge the gap between textbook English and the real language used by native speakers every day. In this video, we will listen to a story called Friends for Life, which explores themes of loyalty and resilience. By the end of this lesson, you will have a deeper understanding of the idiom through thick and thin and how to use it to describe long-lasting relationships, all while practicing your British English comprehension. Let's get started. Harry and Richard had been best mates for over 20 years. They first crossed paths in the canteen at university in Leeds, bonding instantly over a shared dislike of the terrible coffee and a love for vintage motorbikes. Harry was a secondary school teacher living in a small flat in Manchester, while Richard worked as a landscape gardener in a quiet village in Derbyshire. Despite the distance and their busy lives, they always made an effort to see each other. They had supported one another through redundancies, family crises, and health scares. They were the definition of friends who stick together, no matter what the universe threw at them. To mark 2 decades of friendship, Richard suggested they go on an adventure. He proposed a hiking trip in the Scottish Highlands, a place famous for its rugged beauty and unpredictable weather. Harry was not particularly keen on camping, preferring the comfort of his own bed and a nice cup of tea, but he agreed because he knew how much it meant to Richard. They spent weeks preparing, buying waterproof trousers, sturdy walking boots, and a high-quality tent. They packed their rucksacks with tinned food, a small stove, and plenty of warm jumpers. When they finally arrived at the start of the trail near Fort William, the sun was shining brightly. The heather on the hills was a vibrant purple, and the lochs reflected the blue sky like mirrors. It seemed like the perfect start to their holiday. They set off in high spirits, chatting about old times and breathing in the fresh, crisp air. However, anyone familiar with the British mountains knows that the weather can change with frightening speed. By late afternoon, the blue sky had vanished, replaced by ominous grey clouds that seemed to swallow the peaks ahead of them. The first drop of rain felt like ice against Harry's cheek. Within minutes, a light drizzle transformed into a torrential downpour that soaked them to the bone. The path, which had been firm and gravelly only an hour before, turned into a slippery river of mud. They pulled their hoods up and kept their heads down, tramping silently through the gloom. The wind picked up significantly, howling through the glen and buffeting them from side to side. Harry bitterly regretted leaving his warm flat in Manchester, longing for central heating and dry socks. He shouted over the wind, asking if they should stop and pitch the tent immediately, but Richard shook his head. He insisted they needed to reach the shelter of a bothy, a small mountain hut, before night fell completely. As they scrambled up a steep ridge, disaster struck. Richard's boot caught on a wet root hidden beneath the heather, and he tumbled awkwardly onto the loose scree. A sharp cry of pain pierced the sound of the wind. Harry rushed to his side immediately, dropping his walking poles in the mud. Richard gripped his ankle tightly, his face pale with pain. It was clear he could not put any weight on it. They were miles from the nearest road, soaking wet, and the temperature was plummeting rapidly.
This was the moment their bond was truly tested. Harry did not complain or say, "I told you so," despite his earlier reluctance to come on the trip. Instead, he took Richard's heavy rucksack and strapped it to his own chest, looking like a heavily laden pack-horse. He hoisted Richard up, offering his strong shoulder as a crutch. Progress became agonizingly slow. Every step was a battle against the boggy ground and the additional weight. To make matters worse, a thick fog descended upon the mountain, reducing visibility to mere meters. They had to rely entirely on their compass and map, checking their bearings constantly to ensure they were not walking in circles. Richard apologized profusely for ruining the holiday, but Harry just shrugged it off. He told Richard to save his breath for walking. They were in a precarious situation, yet Harry remained calm and focused. He realized that getting angry or panicked would not help his friend. They moved as a single unit, stumbling through the mist, driven by the sheer determination to get to safety together.
After what felt like an eternity of struggling through the gloom, Harry spotted a dark rectangular shape looming in the mist. It was the bothy. A wave of relief washed over them, giving them a sudden burst of energy to cover the final few hundred meters. Harry fumbled with the latch, his fingers numb with cold, and pushed the heavy wooden door open. The interior was basic, consisting of nothing more than stone walls, a wooden sleeping platform, and a cold fireplace. But to them, it felt like a 5-star hotel. It was dry and sheltered from the howling gale outside. Harry gently helped Richard sit down on the platform before collapsing onto the floor himself, his chest heaving from the exertion of carrying the double load. Once they had caught their breath, Harry set to work. He used his torch to find some dry wood left by previous hikers and managed to get a small fire crackling in the grate. They changed out of their sodden clothes and wrapped themselves in their sleeping bags. Harry boiled some water on their small camping stove and handed Richard a steaming mug of tea and a chocolate biscuit. The warmth slowly returned to their bodies, and the terrifying ordeal of the afternoon began to feel like a distant memory. Richard looked at his ankle, which was swollen and blue, and then looked at his friend. He thanked Harry quietly, admitting that he would have been in serious trouble without him. Harry simply smiled and took a sip of his tea. He told Richard that there was no need for thanks, because that is what mates do. They stick together through thick and thin. In that cold stone hut in the middle of the Highlands, their friendship was stronger than ever. They knew that when the storm passed in the morning, they would figure out a way to get back to the car, just as they had navigated every other challenge in their lives. That brings us to the end of our story for today. I hope you enjoyed following Harry and Richard on their rather wet and dramatic adventure in the Scottish Highlands. It was quite a journey, from the sunny start at the bottom of the trail to the challenging trek through the storm to find safety. Notice how we used the idiom "through thick and thin" to describe their loyalty to one another, meaning they stayed supportive during both the good times and the difficult times. We also used a variety of narrative tenses to move the action forward and describe the atmosphere of the mountains. If you found this lesson helpful and want to see more stories like this, please remember to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me create more content for you. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next lesson.